Hello everyone, today we will have two interesting stories. Before we get to that, I want to ask you to subscribe, like, and be sure to write comments in order to participate in the development of the community. Write how to improve my community, current topics, and the stories you are interested in, and much more. I read and listen to all the comments. People write me stories by mail from different countries. There are problems with translation. I apologize for this. I will work on it and try to fix these errors. I want to thank everyone for their support and the people who wrote to me by mail. Broadcast news stories. New videos on my channel are published every 2 days at 7 p.m. Don't forget to put a bell in order not to miss new videos. And now, let's go. Hello, I want to tell you my story. I'm 35 years old. My wife is 30 years old. We have been together for 10 years and we have a child who is 3 years old. We both have a full-fledged family since birth. My wife was brought up very strictly. Her parents loved her very much and taught her the right values. They managed to raise a very good daughter. I have a small business. I will not say that I'm very rich, but I do not deny myself anything. My wife worked before the birth of our child, but it didn't bring a lot of money to the family. Most likely, she worked for self-realization. But I have always been pleased with my wife's initiative to develop. I make all the serious decisions in the family. I am a reliable support and resource earner. Everything is wonderful in our intimate life, but I must admit that the initiative in sex comes more from my wife. I've always considered honesty and loyalty to be the most important thing in a relationship. In our relationship, I gave my wife complete freedom of action within a reasonable framework. There's a stable order in our house. My wife does the laundry, cooks, and so on. In general, throughout our life together, she completely satisfied me. Now about the sad, sometimes my wife said that she lacked emotions. She said she was very emotional and I was like a dried cracker. That's why it was hard for her to have a relationship with me. I always calmly tried to explain to her that I'm such a person in life, but I love her, just not the way she wants to see it. Flowers, gifts, travel are all present in our relationship. I try to give her as much free time as possible. After giving birth to my wife, our child was in intensive care. My wife spent a month in the hospital next to our child. All this time, I have been providing them with everything they need. After a while, everything got better and everything is fine with the child. But my wife was psychologically traumatized. If I'm not mistaken, an unreacted emotion. That is, the fear of losing a child. My wife was experiencing stress and the burden of caring for an infant. At the same time, I helped in every way possible. After a while, I began to notice that my wife drinks a lot of alcohol. I didn't match any importance to this because I thought she was stressed and sooner or later she would stop drinking. But as it turned out, no. My wife began to hide the use of alcohol and lied on me. I understood that something had to be done about it. Because my wife's promises not to drink were no longer kept, I sent my wife to a rehabilitation center. Thank God she voluntarily agreed to this step. It cost a lot of money and was very far away from our house. I visited my wife once a week. The doctors make a verdict that my wife has no chemical dependence. All the problems are in her head. She is discharged from the rehabilitation center and saying that everything is fine with her. She was even allowed to drink alcohol in small doses. But my wife didn't last very long. She started drinking heavily again. At the same time, when I ask, "Have you been drinking today?" she screams and proves the opposite to me. She carefully hides all the evidence. In general, the situation is very scary. My wife came up with a scheme for drinking alcohol. I quickly figured out this scheme, but she was constantly coming up with something new in order to drink at least something. I could no longer counteract this effectively. After a while, I stumbled upon my wife's correspondence with one guy. There was nothing to worry about, but the turns of speech alerted me. I quote the correspondence, "My sweet, where are you now?" I asked my wife, "What is it?" She replied that when she'd driven to see her mom, some jerk molested her and now writes to her nonstop. But okay, I thought. I wrote down this guy's number just in case. My wife continues to drink alcohol. I don't have the strength to fight it anymore, especially after the fact that the rehabilitation center did not help. Suddenly, there is a traffic accident in a state of intoxication. The culprit of the accident, of course, is my wife. The blow to our financial condition is again decent. We find another way to overcome alcohol addiction. I'm starting to notice that this method helps my wife a lot. About 5 months of sobriety. Psychologists work with my wife. I was very glad that it helped her. After a while, we buy a new apartment. I remember perfectly well about my wife's correspondence with this guy. I didn't want to delve into this correspondence and dig deeper, but still, I couldn't help myself and wanted to find out the truth. I found out who this guy is. I put together a lot of pieces of evidence and realized that I was a horned deer. In a rage, I start a serious conversation with my wife. She cries and swears that they didn't have sex. She says they were just flirting and nothing else. I'm starting to put moral pressure on my wife. Through tears, she admits that she kissed him, but I don't believe it and I continue to put moral pressure on her. As a result, I find out that they had sex several times, but this happened during a period of alcohol abuse. She cried and begged for forgiveness. She said she hasn't been in contact with him for half a year, that she loves only me, and so on. I was shocked by what I heard. I got dressed and left the house to walk to the nearest bar. I was sitting and drinking whiskey at the bar. At the same time, I ignored calls and texts from my wife. I returned home and went to sleep in another room. After a couple of days of ignoring my wife, we started a dialogue. My wife was begging me for forgiveness again. I calmly told her that I wasn't sure I could forgive her for cheating. She packed her things and went to her mother. There was an emptiness in my soul. I smoked and looked at one point and realized that there are no successful comeback. If my wife cheated on me once, then she will cheat on me again and again. I am not afraid of divorce because I'm a mentally strong person. I am financially secure, young, and handsome. Perhaps I wouldn't hesitate to leave my wife. But I loved my child very much. I turned to a good lawyer. I wanted to take the child to myself because I was afraid to leave the child with my alcoholic wife. As a result, I filed for divorce. My wife is still trying to persuade me to stay in the family. She is very sorry for what she did. The court ruled in my favor. I took advantage of my wife's alcohol addiction. Do you think I did the right thing? Write your comment. Deep down, I feel that I acted meanly and blame myself. At the moment, I am a single father. I have completely devoted myself to raising my child. I see his love for me. I am very happy. Before we move on to the opinion of the author of the channel, we will have one more little story. Let's go. I've been married for 10 years. My wife is 30 years old and I am 38 years old. We have a son who is 9 years old. Our financial situation is average. We have everything we need for life. I am an exemplary family man and have never cheated on my wife. I've never even thought about cheating. In our marriage, I was happy with everything and loved my wife. There were quarrels between us, but we quickly solved all the problems, and there were no strong scandals between us. In general, as it seemed to me, everything was like everyone else. We loved each other, quarreled, and reconciled. Recently, everything has started to collapse. But like a fool, I turned a blind eye to everything. Although there were obvious facts, I've always tried to talk to my wife, but she avoided serious talking between us. In general, we have hardly spoken to each other for the last 6 months. My wife stopped doing housework. I did everything for her, cleaned and cooked. Naturally, I went to work at the same time. Every evening after work, I looked after our child. My son does sports and he has workouts every day, so I took him to the gym every day and took him home. After a while, we sent the child to a sports camp. I have free time to think about family problems. I came across an article on the internet, 5 Factors of Adultery. In this article, everything was described as I have in my life. I couldn't help myself and took my wife's mobile phone. As a result, I came across my wife's correspondence with her lover. I was shocked and denied what was happening. I couldn't believe this was happening to me. In a rage, I demanded an explanation from my wife. My wife naturally denied everything. She swore to me by the health of our son that it was not serious. She said it was just a virtual flirtation. I decided to call this guy and made an appointment. We meet and talk to him. It turned out that they had been having an affair for a very long time. During the year, they had sex at every opportunity. This guy found out about my existence a month ago. My wife had to confess to him because he insisted on meeting her parents. My wife's lover wanted to live happily with her and build a family. She confessed to him about our son right away. She told him that we were no longer a family. What we have in common is only a stamp in the passport. There's no relationship between us and we live separately. This revelation came as a shock to me. In a state of shock, I said to this guy, "What does it turn out to be? Did you and I fuck my wife in turn?" Because we had sex with my wife until the last. By the way, I quietly took my wife's mobile phone after sex when she went to the shower, because she didn't let go of her mobile phone. In general, I filed for divorce. We were given time to think. A week has passed and I'm trying to get over it somehow. It's very hard for me and I don't know what to do. There are constant emotional swings in my life. But the scariest thing is that we still live together with her. She can't move to a rented apartment yet because she has a bad financial situation. Our child returned home and my life became the same again. In the morning, go to work after the child for training, then sleep, and so on. I don't want to leave my house. I'm not so noble as to leave everything to my wife. I want to ask for advice. Do you know better from the outside what I should do in this situation? That's the story, friends. If you liked it, give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so as not to miss new videos. Now let's move on to the opinion of the author of the channel. The opinion of the author of the channel. By tradition, I want to wish strength and patience to our heroes. Female alcoholism is the most terrible diagnosis. I've come across many girls who like to drink. To be honest, there is such a saying. A drunk girl is not the mistress of a vagina. Girls in a state of alcoholic intoxication want sex twice as much. This is proven by practice. Take my word for it. That's why I think you made the right choice. You will no longer have a happiness with AA girl who betrayed you and is ill with alcoholism. Moreover, she had sex in a state of intoxication. Keep moving forward and don't look back. Pay attention to your child. Children are the most important thing in our life. Finding a new girl is not a problem. The problem is finding a good girl nowadays, so be careful with the choice of a girl. Much of what I have said applies to the second case. But I will say, my opinion, leave your wife without hesitation. Contact a psychologist or for the support of your friends. It's your business, of course, but your wife should leave your house. The girl who changed will betray again and again. I think our community will give you a couple more tips from their lives. If you have watched to the end, I want to say thank you very much. I love you all. Thank you for joining me on this exciting journey of love, betrayal, and redemption. I appreciate your support and encourage you to subscribe, like, and share this story. Your participation and feedback are invaluable for shaping our content and promoting mutual understanding and community growth. Until we meet again.